Hey y'all, how's it going? It's Sway, and we're here to talk about Mech. Now we know Mech and Quilboar are coming on Monday, so these are our last two minion types getting introduced. I'm so excited to just have all of our minion types back and available to us. Let's go, let's talk about it. So as per usual with these videos, first we'll talk about what's leaving and then what's new. So the interesting thing that I found about Mech is that there's not really a direct correlation. Like there were some minions that were new that were like doing kind of a similar thing, but in more of like the schema of the minion type. But with Mech, we're really seeing some minions leaving and not being like replaced. Like it's just leaving and then a brand new kind of situation. And let me clarify when I say brand new. For Mech, it's not brand new. We have a lot of magnetic coming to the game, which magnetic is a pretty, common thing with Mech in Hearthstone. However, it's not been in Battlegrounds. It has, but it's not to the extent of other game modes. So excited to see a lot of magnetization coming to Battlegrounds, but what's leaving? On tier 3, we are losing our Iron Sensei. This is one that has left and come back and now is leaving again. This gives +2/+2 to a Mech. It's on tier 3. It's just kind of a casual end of turn buffer. At the end of your turn, you get +2/+2. So we will miss you again, Iron Sensei. I don't know how much, but we will, I think. On tier 4, we have a Greasebot leaving. This is one that got changed. It was strong. It was weak. Greasebot has had a journey, so leaving now is interesting. It is the minion that buffs when shields are removed. So I think the whole aspect of like this buffing capacity outside of battle cries and magnetics are kind of a thing of the past in a way. So maybe that's kind of what we're seeing exit. And that being said, tier 5, we have Mecha. That's a really, really important minion to be going away. So specifically with Mech, I'll talk about one specific interaction. It is a direct counter for Dr. Boombox, who is one of our newer Mech that does 7 damage to the 2 nearest enemy minions. It's a nice little tech piece for counters. You can remove a Rivendare by running it at the back of your board with a taunt. Like it can do some damage to minions at scale during combat. It was a direct counter. Mecha was a direct counter for this minion because one would lose a shield, then the other one would lose a shield, and then one would lose a shield, and the other one would lose a shield when someone ran the boombox whole situation. So seeing Mecha leave is sad, and this is another minion that's been on a journey. But I think, like I said, I think we're moving away from that situation into more magnetic situation. So another functionality change we learned during playtesting, you can magnetic onto a full board now. So you don't need to sell a minion anymore to magnetic. And I will tell you right now, I am going to forget that while I'm playing the game. I'm going to be like, oh, I need to sell something. I'm going to do it on accident because I'm so conditioned and so used to doing that. And I'm sure I'm not the only one, but knowing that now, we can magnetic onto a full board. So, new minions, let's talk about them. On tier 2, speaking of magnetic, we have Lullabot. This is a tier 2 magnetic. At the end of your turn, gain +1/+1. So it's in a way like a sensei where it's, end of turn effect, gaining +1/+1. So this itself could work with the Drakari. It's not the most stats in the world, but it can get magnetic to something and just get that incremental stat buff. I like it. It's really cute. Plus, it's just really adorable. So this is going to be helpful just for, some board scaling. On tier 3, this is a pretty anticipated one. This is also a magnetic. This is a Cordotron on tier 3. We have at the start of your turn, gain 1 extra gold. So this is a 2/3 Mech with magnetic. Gaining 1 extra gold is really fun. I'm going to be real with you. I'm going to tell you what I might end up doing, which is very silly, but I am also the person that would triple the replicating menace every now and then, which would give you the 2/2s instead of the 1/1s. So here I am doing stuff. Actually, I will wait for it because it's concerning our tier 6 minions. So I'm just going to wait, but I'll tell you about it. I will. We'll get there. But yes, But yes, before I get too ahead of myself, a Cordotron, just a really nice little extra economy unit, which right now we are seeing pretty beneficial to have just that little bit of extra economy using like the South Sea Busker, that new pirate on the correct turn. Just extra gold in turns, especially when you're getting into like the middle later game, can be very, very beneficial. So I'm excited to see a Cordotron. On tier 4, we're seeing the introduction of an Avenge unit. This is really, really interesting. This is the Scrap Scraper. This is a 3/6 Avenge 4, get a random magnetic mech. So the ability of having this Avenge unit, which we do have, you know, some summoning units, like we have the Micro Mummy, we have the Harvest Golem staying in, we do have that Replicating Menace. So there are many minions that can die in this situation, and you get a random magnetic mech. So like you could run a mech milk comp, I tried to combine those words and they're too similar, but like a mech milk comp, because of some of these later units that could use those magnetizations. And you don't even necessarily need to run a milk comp. Like you could run a normal mech comp of like a double deflecto, both having a Replicating Menace, both having a Harvest Golem, having the Micro Mummy, you know, having those minions that make all the other minions better. So I think that this is a really fun little unit. I'm hoping Avenge 4 isn't too high. Avenge 3 may be too OP. So I'm quite excited for the Scrap Scraper. I'm pretty sure I've said I'm excited for like all of these cards, but like legitimately, Mech is probably my most anticipated minion types. On tier 5, we have our Utility Drone. This is another end of turn effect. At the end of your turn, give your minions +1/+1 for each magnetization they have. So if you get this, like, let's build this scenario, right? You have a double deflecto. Both of them have a menace on them. You have used the Lullabot, you've used the Accordotron, you have a Scrap Scraper on your board, you have all of these things to kind of get some value from magnetic units. You have a Utility Drone, you have a Drakari. I feel like you just scale to the moon. Like you just go forever and ever and ever. And like, that's like almost like an AFK board at that point. I really, really like this Utility Drone. I was going to say I'm excited, but I am excited. It's going to be really fun to play for sure. And I think it's going to be this is very different, you know? The concept of like having multiple minions magnetized onto this one minion and then buffing based on that, I think is so cool. And last but not least, on tier 6, we have our Polarizing Beatboxer. Okay, so this is going to come full circle on that little tangent I was about to go down. So the Polarizing Beatboxer, whenever you magnetize another minion, it also magnetizes to this. Let me tell you, in my greedy little sway brain, what's going on here. So first of all, Polarizing Beatboxer sounds just fantastic and very fun, and I think it'd be just a blast with Utility Drone. But say you don't magnetic something, right? Say you just play it without attaching it to something. That gives you the opportunity to triple it while still getting the value from that unit. So like pretend you got some Accordotrons that you were able to not magnetize, which could get hard if you have a bunch of mech, because like, well, you just always play it to the right of the board, just all the way to the right. And then you triple the Accordotron, you're already in possession of a Beatboxer. And then you magnetic that, you get the value from it, and you get the double value from it. So you gain 2 extra gold, because that's what a golden unit does. And then you get 4 gold a turn just from that. And then you also have the Utility Drone and the Drakari situation. So not only is that happening, but you're also magnetizing things and getting buffs. And I'm so, day 1 mech for me, dreams, literal dreams. This is gonna be just a blast. I'm so excited for Monday. Okay, so moving on here. What are mechs going to be good and bad versus? This is, of course, very generalized, just based on, you know, how minions act, how they don't. So based on the mech comp you have, this is very subjective. I've been noodling about beasts this for a second here, just sitting here thinking about beasts. Mech are going to be both good and bad versus beast, and here's why. We have our Dr. Boombox, which I was talking about before, which can easily target the back of a board. So say you're running a golden boombox, or 2 boomboxes, actually, it'd probably be better given reborn on beasts. So you run 2 boomboxes, both taunted back of your board, and they remove the back of the beast board. Fantastic. You also have a foe reaper. This is a cleave. We have another cleave coming into the game. Right now we only have pirate cleave, technically 2 with wildfire, but wildfire doesn't really count sometimes. So foe reaper coming back into the game. Cleave can be good against beasts. Also sometimes can help though, depending on the kind of beast build it is. So in that way, could be good or bad. But in terms of just like shielded units like Deflecto and like, but really though, like the shielded aspect of Mech is kind of gone. Like we have Deflectobot with a shield, we have Module giving a shield with the magnetic, but like aside from that, removing Meckerel was pretty impactful there. We still have the Pup-Bot, of course, with the shield, but like running shields, large shielded minions into Beast, if you just have straight up like a double Deflecto board, not going to be great for you. So that in that case, it's bad. So specific to beasts, I'm running through all of these different scenarios, but now pirates, shields are great against pirates. Cleave is great against pirates. You know, the scaling and stacking ability, fantastic against pirates. Pirates don't have those shields. Pirates have stats and just big stats. So they could scale very well, but they need to run a Tunnel Blaster against you more likely than not. Even if you are running, let's say, just the most rudimentary, like just summoning Mech Milk board that scales, you know, that's still stats. That's still things that summon. In general, it's going to be great against pirates because they don't have a lot of protection. They just have stats and gold. And stats and gold against Divine Shields, not so good. Or even just against things that scale as well as I think that these are going to. Demons, also kind of in the same line. However, unless you like absolutely just get the demons, like the demons, then those demons will take those hits and they'll be fine. And then they'll kill the minions and they'll still be fine. So demons, depending on how heavy you're scaling at that point, could be great, could be terrible. Mech is one of those comps that's kind of hard countered by Tunnel Blaster. Like Mech Dragon, obviously the value of shields in Mech is very, very high. That is something really important to a Mech comp. But I'm hoping the introduction of these other things make it less so. But it will be an interesting thing to see. Of course, great situation into Venomous, into Murloc. However, the way that Murloc are working now with those hand buffs, I do think that maybe this is kind of susceptible to Murloc. Like I think that Mech into Murloc might not be the best situation for the Mech. To be honest, the way that Murlocs scale and at the rate at which they scale and like taking down these small minions, like you can knock a shield with a base skill and get a 300 minion, like that can just happen. So I think that actually this is pretty susceptible to Murloc, which is not something I would have said in past metas. So that's a kind of interesting to think about. Undead, kind of similar situation where Undead is gonna hit with the small things and then summon bigger things and bigger things and bigger things back of the board. So that is another thing that Mech may be pretty susceptible to. I do like how many minions are kind of getting stat heavy. Like there are still tech in the game, but there are so many ways to make so many minions very, very large, which seems to be kind of the move right now. So far we've seen as the minion introductions have happened, and I'm really enjoying it. I think that Mech is going to continue to follow a similar schema, but not quite exactly, just along those same lines, because this lives in this world between scaling and also summoning, which we don't see too much of, to be honest. Like Beast, opposite of that. You don't like, you have scaling, but it's super passive scaling and it happens during combat, but you don't really scale through the course of the game. Undead, similar. Undead, you're scaling, but you're like I'm thinking of Eternal Night build. I'm thinking of like Sister Death Whisper with undead units. So like, reborn units. So this is a very different situation than we've seen with other minion types. So I feel like it's a little bit harder to read in comparison of like these shakeups, you know? Now, given the versatility of this, the heroes that you play and who, like, what kind of Mech build you build could honestly be very contingent upon your hero. Like, for instance, if you play Greybow, who is one I use for a very common example because I feel like it's a very approachable example, because it is a summoning hero, but it does taunt those minions. So say you're trying to run a scrap scraper build and just get as many magnetic units as possible. Like you run Greybow and these minions die, they get taunted. So it's easier to kind of ensure the kind of farming of your own minions, which would help with a scrap scraper build. So then you can just get a bunch of magnetic units, build onto all of these units that you hope are eventually going to die, and then utility drone and buff. So I think that there's so many different hero. I think that there's so many different hero possibilities with different mech builds, if that makes sense. Economy, of course, economy heroes are not necessarily going to play too well into this. However, I think it plays better now with magnetization than it does in the past. A note, though, like that when you magnetic a unit, that unit's gone. So like it's not going to come back to the pool. So there will be a point where you're not going to be able to find things in the shops. You know, if you're that time when new things come out and everyone wants to play with the shiny new things, it is going to be hard if you are trying to run a mech build and you're not finding those magnetic units and everyone's playing with the new shiny things. Even for tests, it'll be hard because people are going to magnetic the things and you can't really buy that way. So overall, this is going to be very much like a let's see how this goes situation. The scrap scraper is going to be pretty pivotal, I think, to get as much value as possible if you're trying to run a whole magnetic mech build. I know this one was like a little bit more vague than any of the other minion talks that we've had in the past, but this is definitely way farther out of the box than anything we have in the game right this moment. And I think that it's going to be a very interesting situation in seeing how it plays into and against different things. It is a very versatile minion type, especially now. And I think seeing it in play is just going to be a whole different animal. So we'll see you on Monday. Let me know what you think about Mech. Let me know what you're excited to play, if there's anything I missed. And we'll be back tomorrow with a Quillboar review. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.